Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Imagine a supercomputer level assistant living directly on your laptop. Like no cloud, no Wi-Fi connection, and absolutely no monthly subscription fees.
Which sounds completely impossible, right?
Right, but Meta just made that a reality. But by giving away the keys to artificial superintelligence for free, they've ignited a massive geopolitical war.
Yeah, and a very public, very messy showdown in Washington.
Exactly. Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Alex, coming to you from Snarful Solutions Group in sunny Sacramento, California.
And I'm Morgan. We have an incredibly complex intersection of hardcore technology and, corporate strategy to break down for you today.
We really do. It is officially Monday, August 10th, 2026, and we are kicking off a fascinating week. But before we get into the heavy hitters, let's start with your quick Morning Star update to get you calibrated for the day.
Always a good idea.
Right. So if you were here in Sacramento with us, you were looking at a gorgeous, sunny 96 degrees.
Hot one.
Yeah, but there's a very light 3 to 10 mile per hour breeze, so it's keeping things, tolerable.
Nationally, though, things are a bit wilder out there. If you are traveling today, be aware that there are currently 148 active weather alerts across the country.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and 118 of those are over land. So definitely point your browser over to weather.gov to check the details on your specific route before you head out.
Good call. Moving over to the financial markets. It is a bit of a mixed bag to start the week. The Dow Jones dipped slightly, closing down 134 points at 53,938.
But the index is still up for the week overall, right?
Yes, actually. And the S&P 500 managed to eke out a tiny gain, closing at 7,752. For those of you watching crypto, Bitcoin remains remarkably steady this morning, hovering right around 64,841.
And for the sports fans tuning in, we had some interesting action on the diamond over the weekend.
We really did. The Giants had a pretty rough outing, dropping their game 1-3 against Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, with Kenley Jansen taking the win on the mound for Detroit.
On the flip side, the Athletics managed to pull off a really tight 4-3 victory over the Boston Red Sox.
That was a good game.
It really was. Elvis Alvarado pitched the win there, locking it down in an absolute nail-biter. But today, we are pointing our lens entirely at Meta.
It's all Meta today.
Yeah. We are looking at a monumental new AI rollout, a staggering 14-page manifesto published by Mark Zuckerberg about the philosophy of superintelligence and the brewing political storm over who exactly gets to control this technology.
Because the stakes here extend far beyond just, another software update.
Yeah.
We're looking at a fundamental shift in how artificial intelligence is distributed globally.
And the regulatory backlash that shift is triggering. We are going to get into all of the mechanics and the fallout. First, today's episode is brought to you by Strong Coffee, the premium instant coffee that tastes like a traditional brew but is packed with 15 grams of protein, MCTs, and adaptogens like ashwagandha. Get clean, sustained energy without the jitters. Use promo code SNARFL for 20% off at strongcoffeecompany.com. All right, let's unpack this. Meta has just open-sourced a brand new 30 billion parameter AI model called Muse Glimmer. And the key word popping up across all the technical documentation and developer forums is agentic.
Agentic, yeah.
Right. This is not just a standard chat bot that summarizes an article or writes boilerplate code. An agentic model is fundamentally different.
That distinction is the entire ballgame, really. An agentic model is designed for long horizon execution.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning it can be handed a high-level goal, break that goal down into sequential steps, manage your schedule, draft messages, organize your local files.
Wow.
Yeah, and it can even process visual inputs like charts and UI elements. It does this autonomously without requiring constant prompting or course correction from the user.
Okay, so if I'm trying to picture the workflow shift for you, the listener, it is akin to having a highly capable multitasking intern living entirely inside your laptop's hard drive.
That's a great way to think about it.
You don't have to ping a remote server in another state over a slow connection. The agent has deep context because it is sitting right there on your local machine, looking at your specific file structures and workflows.
And because it operates locally, it solves the privacy bottleneck that has kept AI out of highly regulated industries.
Like finance and healthcare.
Exactly. For working professionals handling sensitive financial data, healthcare records, or proprietary corporate code, this means you get the power of a frontier model without ever sending a single byte of data up to a cloud server.
Okay, but I have to push back on the hardware realities here because, the math just doesn't seem to add up.
What do you mean?
A 30 billion parameter model is a massive file. Uncompressed, we're talking about roughly 55 gigabytes of data.
It is huge.
Right. So how does a 55 gigabyte model fit into the memory of a standard consumer laptop without completely maxing out the hardware and turning the machine into a space heater?
Yeah, it would melt most laptops.
But yeah.
And that hardware constraint is the main reason we haven't seen capable local agents until now. But Meta bypassed this using a technique called extreme quantization.
Extreme quantization.
Yeah. They basically took the model's weights and compressed them from standard's 16-bit precision down to 4-bit precision.
Shrinking the footprint of the neural network itself, but doesn't that inherently, lobotomize the model?
It sounds like it would.
Yeah, if you are throwing away that much mathematical precision, doesn't the reasoning capability degrade, making the agent more prone to hallucinations?
Well, you do see a slight degradation in highly esoteric edge cases. But the overarching architecture, the knowledge, the mathematical relationships between the concepts, it remains remarkably intact.
Really?
Yeah. By moving to 4-bit quantization, Meta shrank the physical file size from over 55 gigabytes to just under 20 gigabytes.
Okay, well, 20 gigabytes is manageable. Most modern prosumer laptops ship with 24 or 32 gigabytes of unified memory, which means the model can actually reside in the RAM.
Exactly. It resides in the RAM, leaving just enough of a working envelope for the AI to actually process context, run its visual encoder, and hold its memory state.
Okay, that makes sense.
But fitting the model into memory is only half the engineering challenge. The other half is overcoming the generation bottleneck, so the model is actually fast enough to be useful.
Right, because if an agent takes 20 minutes to autonomously organize my calendar or draft a weekly report, the utility completely evaporates. I would just do it myself.
Exactly. And language models are inherently constrained by autoregressive generation. They generate text one single token at a time, sequentially.
So it's a bottleneck.
Yeah, and the bottleneck isn't computing power, it is memory bandwidth. So to solve this, Meta implemented something called speculative decoding.
Speculative decoding.
Yeah, they paired Muse Glimmer with a highly optimized, tiny sidekick model called the D-Flash Drafter.
Wait, how does introducing a second model speed up the first one? That sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but think of it this way. The tiny D-Flash model runs ahead and guesses the next sequence of tokens, drafting entire blocks of text instantly.
Okay.
Then the larger, smarter Muse Glimmer model looks at that drafted block. Because modern GPUs can evaluate and verify multiple tokens in parallel, even though they can only generate them sequentially. Muse Glimmer can instantly approve the block if the draft is accurate, or overwrite it if it's wrong.
Oh, wow. So it is anticipating the output. It is like having a junior assistant draft the email, and the senior executive just scans it and signs off on it in 2 seconds, rather than the executive typing the whole thing out from scratch.
That is the perfect analogy. That parallel verification circumvents the memory bandwidth bottleneck entirely. The real-world result for you is a model that operates at blistering speeds, entirely offline, for free.
Okay, well, let's look closer at that free aspect, because the corporate strategy here is fascinating. Meta has poured billions into developing this architecture, and they're giving the weights away.
Yeah, billions.
And Mark Zuckerberg actually published an essay alongside this release. It's a 14-page, 6,510-word manifesto outlining what he calls a positive AI philosophy.
That's quite the read.
It is. He argues that the world must distribute superintelligence to the individual to prevent a dangerous concentration of power among a few big businesses and governments.
Yeah, he focuses heavily on the concept of the balance of power. The thesis is that if frontier AI is locked behind the API walls of a few massive tech labs, the balance of power permanently tilts away from the consumer.
Right.
By open sourcing Muse Glimmer and eventually their upcoming Muse Spark 1.2 model, Meta claims to be democratizing that capability.
And they are backing up the philosophy with significant capital. Meta announced a $1 billion Future is for Everyone fund, investing directly into the local communities where they are constructing their massive data centers.
It serves as a highly visible demonstration of the economic spillover effects of their infrastructure build-out.
Yeah, the socioeconomic impact is tangible. They highlighted Richland Parish, Louisiana, where Meta is building out a massive new compute cluster.
Oh, the teacher bonus story.
Exactly. Thanks to the sudden influx of local tax revenue from that specific project, public school teachers in the district just received a $50,000 bonus this year.
$50,000. That's life-changing.
It is. The local superintendent reported that educators are flocking to the district from all over the country, and Wall Street reacted very favorably to this entire narrative.
I bet they did.
Meta's stock climbed over 2% in the pre-market, and the ticker Meta closed up 0.37% at 592.10. It seems to have completely pacified investor anxiety over Meta's staggering $145 billion capital expenditure budget.
Well, investors needed a clear, cohesive narrative to justify that level of spending. This rollout proves the capital isn't just vanishing into research and development, it is building a foundational global ecosystem.
True, but I have to challenge the altruistic framing here.
Go for it.
Meta is one of the most powerful, data-hungry corporations in human history. Reading a manifesto about empowering the individual and democratizing technology sounds great on paper, but why should you or I trust that this isn't just a strategic trap? Like, what is the actual business play in giving away the keys to the kingdom?
It is a ruthless business strategy disguised as a philosophical stance. Meta is fighting a multi-front war, and the most critical front is against Chinese tech giants like Alibaba and DeepSeek.
Oh, right.
Those international labs are aggressively releasing highly capable open-weight AI models.
So if American tech giants like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic refuse to open source their models, keeping them locked inside paid walled gardens, the global developer community will naturally gravitate toward the Chinese models.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if developers in Europe, India, and South America build their applications, their RAG pipelines, and their security middleware on top of Chinese architecture, the United States loses its soft power and technological supremacy. Meta wants American open source to be the default global standard. They want every developer on Earth optimizing for Meta's ecosystem.
But doesn't that still leave Meta holding the leash? I mean, if developers build entirely on Meta's architecture, are they just trading a paid walled garden for a free one that Meta still ultimately controls?
It is a form of structural lock-in, yes.
Yeah.
It's the classic strategy of commoditizing your complement.
Make the thing everyone else sells free.
Exactly. By giving the model away for free, Meta destroys the business models of their competitors who are trying to sell access to AI. Meanwhile, Meta cements itself as the foundational operating system of the future internet, ensuring their strategic dominance for decades, even without a direct subscription fee.
Which naturally brings us to the blowback, because not everyone in Silicon Valley or Washington is buying this vision. Moving on to our next story, in this manifesto, Zuckerberg took direct public shots at rivals like OpenAI and Anthropic.
He really did not hold back.
No, he explicitly criticized what he calls their doom discourse.
He openly questioned why anyone who genuinely believes artificial intelligence will eliminate human jobs and threaten humanity would aggressively rush to build that exact future.
Which is a fair question.
It was a very targeted critique of the safety-first existential risk faction of the industry.
So he is aligning Meta with the accelerationist camp, the belief that AI is like fire, right?
Yeah.
Dangerous, but essential for human progress, and that hoarding it is a path to tyranny.
Right.
But that rhetoric triggered an immediate reaction in Washington. Senator Bernie Sanders fired off a highly publicized letter to Zuckerberg, Sam Altman of OpenAI, and Dario Amodei of Anthropic, demanding an immediate pause on AI development.
And the letter carries a very specific threat. Sanders warned that if these labs do not stop building autonomous machines that humans cannot fully control, the U.S. Senate will step in and force them to halt via aggressive regulatory mechanisms.
Now, before we analyze the regulatory landscape, I need to make something explicitly clear to you, our listener.
Yeah, this is important.
Here at Snarful Solutions Group, we do not take sides in these political debates. Our mandate is to impartially report on the content of our sources. On one side, proponents argue that open source AI democratizes power, breaks up corporate monopolies, and drives economic prosperity.
And on the other side, critics argue that releasing autonomous agents is a reckless distribution of uncontrollable risks that could lead to mass job displacement or severe security threats.
Right. We are simply conveying the arguments that are actively shaping the future of this technology.
And understanding the friction between those two viewpoints is essential, because that friction is going to dictate the actual laws and restrictions that govern your access to this tech.
Exactly.
Meta is currently attempting a highly complex negotiation with lawmakers, offering an olive branch while simultaneously making heavy demands.
So what does that negotiation actually look like in practice?
Well, in the essay, Meta proposes a framework where government agencies are invited to inspect AI models early in the training process to evaluate security risks. They are essentially offering transparency to regulators before the models are deployed.
Which addresses the Senate's fear of uncontrollable machines being unleashed without oversight.
Yes, but in exchange for that transparency, Zuckerberg is demanding that Washington lift domestic data training restrictions.
Ah, there's the catch.
Right. He makes the case that American AI labs are operating at a severe disadvantage because they face strict copyright and data scraping hurdles, whereas foreign labs, particularly in China, train on whatever data they want without legal consequence.
So the proposition is basically, we will let you look under the hood to ensure the model isn't a national security threat, but you have to clear the legal runway for us to ingest the data we need to beat our international competitors.
He is framing regulation as a national security risk in itself. The argument is that if Congress overly regulates American open source development, they aren't making the world safer. They are simply guaranteeing that a foreign open source model becomes the pervasive global standard.
But how would the Senate even enforce a pause? Like, you cannot uninvent the mathematics behind these models. If Sanders wanted to stop Meta from training Muse Spark 1.2, what are the actual regulatory levers he could pull?
You can't regulate the math, sure, but you can regulate the physical infrastructure. The Senate could impose strict licensing requirements on massive data centers, cap the energy grid permits for compute clusters, or place domestic export controls on the high-end silicon chips required to train these massive parameter models.
Oh, I see.
They could effectively create an FDA-style approval process for AI training runs above a certain compute threshold.
It is an incredible high-wire act for Meta. They have to pacify lawmakers who are threatening to shut down their physical data centers, out-engineer global competitors who are moving at breakneck speed, and appease institutional investors who want to see a return on a $145 billion infrastructure investment.
All while trying to convince the everyday consumer that installing an autonomous 30 billion parameter agent on their laptop is a safe and highly productive idea.
Which brings us full circle right back to Muse Glimmer. The political philosophy is messy, the corporate strategy is ruthless, but the technology is already out in the wild. Before we wrap up, a quick thanks to Old Glory, an iconic music and sports fan merch store. Perfect for the techie in your life. Use promo code SNARFL for 15% off at oldglory.com.
Nice.
If we look back at the ground we've covered today, it paints a cohesive picture of a rapidly shifting landscape. We started with the sheer technical ingenuity of Muse Glimmer, exploring how extreme quantization and speculative decoding allow massive agented AI to live entirely and privately on your personal laptop.
We then zoomed out to examine the high-stakes corporate strategy driving this release. Meta is using open-source architecture as a wedge to establish global dominance against international competitors, ensuring their ecosystem becomes the default for developers worldwide.
Finally, we tracked how that aggressive strategy is triggering blowback in the halls of Congress, where the future of AI regulation, data training restrictions, and the fundamental philosophy of who should control superintelligence are being fiercely contested.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is.
Yeah.
And as we leave you today, I want to give you one final provocative thought to mull over on your own. We've talked extensively about these local agentic models autonomously handling your digital chores.
Yeah, drafting emails, organizing files.
Right. We've explored the reality of them writing code in the background without your constant supervision. If these models actually fulfill their promise of long horizon execution, how is that going to redefine your expectation of the standard 40-hour work week?
It forces a complete reevaluation of what productivity actually looks like.
Absolutely. If your digital intern can reliably execute 60% of your daily operational tasks while you sleep, does your workload simply increase to fill the void, or do you finally get your time back?
Good question.
Will you soon find yourself transitioning from being an individual contributor to acting as a manager for a literal fleet of AI versions of yourself?
It changes the fundamental definition of an employee. You become an orchestrator rather than an executor.
The intern is officially inside the laptop, but the question remains, who is really doing the work? We will leave you with that to think about. We're here to help at Snarfle, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarfle.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.